Welcome back to Story Hustler. I'm Dylan,
And I'm Mike.
and we have a very special guest, Fawn Broadbent. Years ago, you ran away from the FLDS religion, cult, whatever you want to, however you want to describe it. January 10th, 2004, you made that decision to run. Take us back to that night, leading up to that night. Where was your mind at when you were like, I need to get out of here?
Well, welcome. Thank you for having me on on this. I'm very excited to be here. That day was the same day that Warren Jeffs had 23 men stand up in the Saturday work meeting and told them to leave everything. I was not at that meeting, but my father was, and when he got home, he was discussing the matter with my mother. And I come walking into the room and asking what was going on, and he's like, "Doesn't concern you." He knew I was already upset with the religion and everything, and he just didn't want to add fuel to the fire. And then when the children popped up and kind of said what was going on, and they also let me know that my best friend at the time, Fawn Holm, had stopped by, and I asked, well, why didn't someone come and get me? And my father informed me that I was no longer allowed to hang out with her. And of course, as a teenager, I got upset and I told him no when I walked out the door. And that is what started it all.
Oh.
And that was the day that January 10th.
Yep, January 10th, 2004. I I went across the street to get her. We went walk for a walk. We ended up at the dairy farm, and she called her boyfriend at the time and asked somebody to come and get us so we could go spend the day with them in St. George. And we decided that night we didn't want to go back home.
And for folks who remember this moment, it was one of those stories. You and your friend Fawn Holm, the
Yeah.
two lovely young teenage girls, and you decide to leave. It was a story that ended up having a shockwave
Yeah.
in Arizona, in Utah, and really changed the course of history. And in that moment, that fraught moment, the very day that Warren had kicked out all of these men, which was, really was like an earthquake up there. And then suddenly we had two young girls, and eventually you and I crossed paths, but you're now running
Yeah.
and two young girls running at that point. What usually happened when young girls or young boys tried to run away from the FLDS back in the day?
For the girls, it seemed like even when they went to the state for help, they would be sent back. And I think that's one of the big reasons why Flora wanted us to go public is so that they couldn't just send us back. And I really do think that's what made the difference is going public.
What do
And
you think about that idea, that decision that you and Flora and Fawn got involved with?
I think it was the best decision of my life. My life is 1,000 times better being out of that cult. Um, been able to make my own decisions. I graduated high school. That was a really big deal for me. Um, and I'm raising an amazing daughter. And after becoming a parent, it made it so much harder to understand how my parents could be a part of that.
Are they still
They
in?
still are.
Mom
Yep.
and dad are both still in the FLDS and follow.
Mom and dad and my baby sister.
Do you have a relationship with them at all?
I talk to him and see him every now and then, but it's small talk. We don't go into detail with anything. You know, it's very hard to be to give them forgiveness and understanding because I could never imagine doing the things that they've done to my child and not being there for my child. Like they were not there for us like we needed.
How long before you actually left had you kind of been questioning things and saying like, I don't know if I really agree with this?
It had been since I was 13. When I was 13 years old, my oldest brother, Matt, he was the first one to leave. And I remember my father telling us that he was dead. But yet, one time he was out of town working, and my mom invited him to visit. And that's what got me thinking there's something wrong. You know,
And this is your 13.
yeah, I was
I
13
mean,
years old.
by the time you ran. It was interesting. I was looking back at the so people know you got out of there, went to St. George that day, and then got hooked up with the famous Flora Jessup. Really has been. I look back and I think none of this probably would have happened without Flora's.
It would not have happened without Flora.
And she knew when to when to use the media, when to protect people. And anyhow, suddenly we have these two young girls running from Colorado City. The community's already under the microscope because Warren had just basically got up in that Saturday work meeting that morning and thrown out 23 of the most prominent men and said, just leave your families, leave your homes, you're dead to us.
Yeah.
That rocked the town. And suddenly you guys are on the run. And Flora calls me and says, on a Sunday afternoon, it was just like, like today, and says, I got two girls running. Do you want to come? And we went blazing up there, and flew up to Flag and across the Navajo Nation and got up there in the middle of the night and met you guys in Laverton, Utah.
Yeah.
Pick, pick up the story. What tell us about that night from your perspective?
It was scary, but it was also exciting, full of hope. Thought this is really going to happen. I'm really going to get away because I had tried to go through the front door, as my father put it. 2 years before, I had asked him if I could leave. He told me I had to go through the front door, which meant going to Warren. So I did actually get on a call with Warren, and I explained to him, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to live plural marriage. And, he let me know he was very disappointed in me and that he needed to talk to my father. And after that conversation with my father, he told me that Warren told me to give it 2 years. And if I hadn't changed my mind, then I was free to go. I did my 2 years and I didn't change my mind. And then Warren refused to take my phone calls after that.
Wow. Obviously running is scary enough, running from everything you know into a world that you've been taught is a wicked place. And I know Flora made that joke that, we're all wicked out here, just not as wicked as them. Not really like broke the tension. That's one of our favorite moments. But being in that safe house and having, my dad and a camera in your face, like that's all new to you. Like what was that like? Was there any moment where you're like, "Oh my gosh, can I do this? Should I be doing this?"
I was definitely nervous and scared, but I was more excited and intrigued. You'd always wonder, what it's like to be on camera. And, I did get to sneak and watch movies here and there growing up. So it was exciting. It was definitely scary, but I'm just so grateful that Mike was there and helped get my story out there and helped it be possible for us to leave successfully.
Do you think, and people should understand that that moment, we've had lots of stories about Warren since then. Warren was still very much in charge when you were running, and obviously he's been incarcerated, prosecuted. We now have this other guy, Sam Bateman, who is getting a lot of headlines here. But at that moment, nobody was doing anything about cases like yours. There really wasn't a place for young girls to run. Law enforcement was, for the most part, AWOL on this story. And the only people who were really raising hell was Flora and with a little help from a guy, wise guys like me. And at that moment, you were running into you're running away from this horrible situation, but running into the abyss. You didn't know where you were going and what was ahead.
It was very scary because I didn't know what was going to happen with my life. But I don't know, in a sense, knowing that Flora was getting involved, it helped calm me to know that it's actually going to happen.
Were you,
'Cause
were
I
you,
was always told that she was like the devil. And then she shows up in her leather jacket. It was an experience that I'll never forget.
you had heard of Flora, but she was notorious long before
Yes.
you met her, right?
Yes.
Yeah. and
Yeah.
really marked as one of the great enemies of the FLDS. And suddenly you're putting your fate in her hand. It was interesting. When I look back at the comments and some of the things you and Fawn Holmes said at the time, and it really was the common theme was we just want to make our own choices.
Yeah.
We just want to be able to, not have somebody tell us everything that we have to do from, the moment we get up to the moment we go to bed.
Yeah. That was one of the biggest reasons.
What
And
were some of the other reasons that you were most excited to escape?
to be a part of my siblings' lives that had left, uh, to be able to date, go to school. School was a big one for me. Um, when I actually did graduate, my parents actually came to my graduation.
Wow.
And my mom had told me, "You've done something that I've always wanted to do, and I'm jealous." And it
Oh, wow.
kind of broke my heart.
Yeah.
What a moment for between your mother and
Yeah.
and what do you how do you feel about your mom, and we've talked about the men who are sort of in control, but the women who have to go through this, and I'm sure your heart breaks. You sounds like you've got some resentment, but your heart breaks about what the role that your mother, people like your mother, have been forced to, live.
It does break my heart. And I know that a lot of them don't think that they have an option. I wish they realized they did have an option. Um, and as much as, I have a hard time forgiving and understanding why she's still there, I also understand that it's a very scary thought to leave. Um, sorry, give me a minute.
Thank you.
Like, I love her. Um, don't get me wrong, I do. Um, but there's some struggles that I don't think we'll ever be able to talk about and work out. And that's kind of hard to let them just come and pop into my life whenever they want. Because it's never, when I would need them. It's when they want to be in my life is when they're in my life. So
Yeah.
it's hard. But I just wish women truly understood that they have an option and they can get out. And I'm grateful for the way I did it because it opened the door for my sisters.
Did it?
Yes, it did. My father actually ended up dropping two of them off on the front lawn of a home that I was living here years ago, over 10 years ago.
So he kind of helped them.
Yeah. They
Wow.
mentioned that they were gonna get me involved, and he just says, "I'll drive you up there," and he dropped him off.
Have they made the transition?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, 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 yeah.
that
They're doing great.
how rewarding is that? I mean,
It
you're
is.
you're the
It's a
guiding
big
light
reward.
for them, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was, and I've had other women too come up to me and tell me that I gave them courage to do it, and it makes it fulfilling to me that I made a difference.
Well, I did tell you, we could see that, in that moment, in that night, it was a special people, some special people coming together sort of magically. Flora with her,
Absolutely.
her aide, and then you and Fawn, two young women who were, and just hearing you tell of you have an understanding and a feeling about this that's very deep. And even back then, a sort of a maturity that
Yeah,
was notable for two 16-year-old girls.
thank you.
You said that like most women don't even realize that they have the option to leave. Most people probably in the community don't realize they have that option. What made you realize that you had that option that, I'm gonna choose, a lot of people say like eternal damnation compared to this life.
Right.
Um, for me, I had to try. If not, I wouldn't have survived. I was in a low place and I knew that it was just going to get lower if I didn't get out. Unfortunately, I had tried to just end it before
Mm.
and I didn't want that. So I knew I had to get out and no matter what.
Wow.
Uh, Help us, because we're now, Dylan and I, for the last 3 years, have really sort of been embroiled in this Sam Bateman case and have now gotten to know some of the young women who were sort of under his spell and abused by him, and they're now getting out and trying to put their lives together. And I just don't think anything in this story, as Dylan and I have discussed, happens in a vacuum. I mean, Sam was sort of an inevitable offshoot of what Warren had done by
Yeah.
stopping sex, and it was almost predictable. But now we have another generation of women who sort of were raised the same way you are, who are now struggling to get out, to make sense of it. One of the women that we know has become a good friend of ours, and she talks about just the pain of realizing that everything you believed was a lie. First
Yeah.
she first with Warren, and then she got involved with Sam, and has now realized what happened, and just feels like all of her life was based on a lie. What do you've gone through this? What do you say to these young women?
I think that the way I grew up and what I've experienced has helped me become the person I am today. It's made me stronger. You got to try and look at it as you survived something that a lot of people don't and never go through in life. And it definitely has made me a stronger person. It's made me, um, I feel like it's made me a better mother, just more compassionate for women. And I don't know, I think you gotta give yourself credit. You know, it's hard. Don't don't deny yourself that credit. It is really hard and
Wow.
you deserve it and you're worth it.
And obviously, you don't regret that decision whatsoever of leaving. But what's life been like since that night, since leaving?
It's not always easy, I'm sure.
It's
No.
not. I definitely still have my moments of missing, family and stuff like that. But I've gained a bonus family that's made it a million times better. Getting to see how family truly is together and how they're supposed to be with each other has made a big difference in my life. And, I became a mother when I was 21, um, single mother before she was 2, but it has been all worth it. And she is she is my reason.
Yeah, let us.
Keep going.
She's 16 years old. You guys live up in the Salt Lake Valley, and she's
Yeah,
about to graduate early from high school. How
she
proud
is.
of how proud are you?
I am the most proud mother there could be. She has been an amazing, amazing daughter. She is sweet and kind to everyone she meets, and she does an amazing job in school, and she's going to go far in life.
Well, she's got
Would
a
you like to meet
great
her?
role
She's in
model,
high school.
huh? Say
Would you
again?
like to meet her?
Well, if
Love
if
to.
she
She.
wants to meet us, we'd love to say hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hey,
This is my daughter Natisha.
nice to meet you. Welcome on the show.
yeah, this is a bonus. Do you know that your mother is a very historically significant figure, and a great hero?
I do.
You do know that.
I
How do you
do.
feel about all of this?
I think that it's inspiring for one thing because of how much she went through, not only for her, but for me, because I could not imagine if she hadn't left and she still did have me. And so I'm grateful that she did leave so that I didn't have to go through any of that. And it's just very inspiring and how strong she was at my age because I could not imagine.
And you're 16?
Mhm.
Wow, it is the
Yeah.
circle of life. And
Yeah.
you posted about it being your 21st anniversary. Basically, how did you phrase it? How did you
My 21st anniversary to freedom. But I make it a point every year to celebrate that day.
Is that
Because
right? Yeah, no doubt. Uh, what are your feelings about guys like Warren and Sam and the guys those guys get the headlines, and when Dylan and I have discussed it, those guys always get the headlines, and the stories are described. It's about Warren Jeffs. The stories are never about those guys. They just get the headline. It's women like you and Fawn Holm and Flora Jessup and some of the young women who've gotten away from Sam Bateman. They're the heroes, and they're really the movers and shakers that make these stories.
absolutely. I kind of think of it as, so I'm a huge crime junkie. Um, and I feel like we need to focus more on the survivors and the victims than the actual predators. There's always, but unfortunately, there is always going to be predators out there like Warren and Sam. But I think we need to give more credit to the survivors and the victims, tell their stories. You know, I know not everyone wants to tell their story, but the more people that tell their story, the stronger we become to stand against men like those men.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And during this trial, they've referred to the young women as the victims, making victim statements. And then we sort of say we shouldn't be calling them victims, we should be calling them survivors. And then beyond that, but you watch this and you think they're not really just that either. They're the victors. They are the people who have been victorious in this. It's victor statements
Yeah,
because they're the people who suffered, dealt with it, and now bringing these guys down.
yeah,
Where law enforcement, nobody else was doing it. If it wasn't for the strength of the young women coming forward or the women raising hell, these guys would still be doing what they're doing.
yeah. And unfortunately, I don't think Sam's the last one out there. Because I know that there was quite a few break-offs when Warren went to jail, and I think it's just only time until they get caught.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let that out because we think the same thing that Sam's just a a
Yeah.
weird knockoff, and he was so flamboyant. He's gotten and out of control. He's gotten a lot of attention. But there's other guys who are being a little smarter and a little more discreet, and they're getting away with it.
Yeah, but I have faith that they will slip up and get caught too. And I just hope that everyone makes it out and knows that they are strong and they deserve it, the best life that they can have.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, there's these women are obviously in the stages a pretty recent memory with Sam Bateman, something that you obviously
Yeah.
went through. What's your advice to them navigating through life now post Sam Warren FLDS?
Go to therapy. Therapy helped me a lot. I know it's hard to open up to strangers sometimes, but therapy truly helped me understand what I'd gone through and helped me understand a lot of it was not okay. And just talk to somebody, anybody, but just know that there are people out here that want to help you and that will do anything to help you.
Yeah, definitely. I know your mom and a lot of your family, they're still inside, and having Warren be a convicted pedophile, how is it frustrating to have? I know you said some things are off limits with your family that you just really can't talk about, but what's the feeling of like knowing that they still follow someone who has been proven guilty of terrible crimes?
It's very like before they moved, because they just moved to Idaho. I don't know where in Idaho they live, but before, when they were still down in my hometown, you would go into their house and they would have his pictures all over like shrines, and it just makes your blood curl. And it's frustrating because they've been lied to, and they've been told that it was all a setup, and it's just so frustrating that they can't see the truth. And it's hard that I can't, we've tried to talk to them about it, and it just they end up shutting us out when we do. But I wish they would see the truth in it.
How many you say you a large family, some of your siblings out and one still in? What are what's the count?
So 13 of us out of 14 have left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mom and dad and one sibling are still faithful followers.
Yeah.
And it
My
does.
my sibling, she's not so much as a faithful follower. Um, After I left, things got a lot worse in that group from stories that I've heard from my siblings. And she was taken away from my mom for a period of time when she was younger, and it really traumatized her. And so I think that's the reason she stays, is she doesn't want to leave mom. And my father is showing signs of dementia, so she feels that she's got to take care of him. So she stays.
You know, it's interesting because the kicking the men out, but really, right at that same time, there was such a pivotal time. Warren had really just seized power and really kicked the men out. You guys go on the run, but he had started the destruction of the families. And you talk
Yeah.
about the sibling that was taken away. We've now talked to lots of families where basically there's now 2 or 3 generations in the FLDS community where there really is no family structure because
Yeah.
mom and dad in all of the families were kicked out, and the kids have been raised by these caretakers that has been very damaging. And now you got, again, 2 or 3 generations. uh,
Yeah.
you know, you
It made
see,
me it made me very grateful that I did leave when I did.
yeah, it got a lot
I
worse
mean,
after. It
it
got
got so much worse after I left. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Well,
And
listen,
people like Sam Bateman, they're inevitable. So you
they
think that
are
there will be another, well, we call them the renegade prophets, but you think that there will be another one of these?
100%. I do. I think they're out there doing the same thing. We need to find a way to break the cycle, but it's going to take a lot.
but when you have a community that basically is of that mindset, we have to have one prophet, one guy has, you know, and they're isolated from the world. And we've seen this in all the coverage Dylan and I have done, and over the many years, it's just, it just is a fertile ground for these guys to take root.
Yeah.
And, with
You
the
know,
people.
and since I'd left, I had tried like LDS. I went to a Baptist church, but there were so many things that were similar. And it wasn't necessarily the bad things, but they were so similar to the religion I grew up into. I can't do organized religion. And I don't feel that I need to do organized religion, you know. God knows where
Do
my heart is.
you still feel spiritual and believe
Yeah.
in God after all this?
Yeah. I'm still spiritual and believe in God.
But no organized religion.
No organized religion.
I can tell you, having grown up in Salt Lake and being a Mormon, I came to the same spot. It's just the organized religions are not for me. But
Well, I feel like there's a difference between, having faith in what you believe in and, your connection with God, and that's absolutely personal. But then like organized religion is like this other whole side of it. And it's like you can have faith, but you can't just blindly follow that faith. You
Yeah.
gotta question things too, you know? I mean, that's coming from a kid who was not raised religious really like
I,
at
I don't.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I definitely think you need to be able to question life and
Tell us what your plans are now that you're getting out of high school early and star student.
Congratulations on that.
Yes,
That's an
that's just
amazing
awesome.
accomplishment.
Thank you. I'm gonna take a year off to save up for college because I want to try to stay out of loans, and then I'm gonna go to Slick for 2 years and get my associates, and then I am either gonna go to school to be a teacher or a social worker. I'm still debating those two.
I think you had a good training already for some of that, huh?
Yeah. So,
Incredibly important jobs too.
No.
yes.
and she's amazing with children, so it
Aw.
fits her well.
That's awesome. Wow, that's so exciting. Oh my goodness.
Well, this is a bonus and a treat. And Fawn, I look at you as one of the people who really has, historic knowledge about this, and an important insight into this. So it's just so nice to see you and to get your perspectives. And I'm hoping that we could tap you in the future.
Absolutely.
Stay in touch with the two of you. We want to follow your career and just because we're still sort of in the depths, still in the throes of this Bateman thing.
Yeah.
And they're now missing kids in the FLDS community. You've probably heard of all this stuff, and just issues that we want to continue to follow because we don't think they get enough attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you any just parting words about, or anything you want to throw in about what you've gone through and what we should know about situations like Bateman and Warren and the FLDS?
Loaded question.
And
Can
I've did a lot of stuff.
you ask it again?
Just your feelings. What should we know about what's the takeaway from you? You got an understanding of these guys. What should the world know?
I think the world should know that thanks to you and reporters like you, you make a difference and you help bring to light what is actually going on in those communities. And it's because of you guys that help bring, educate the public about it. I think that helps bring those bad men down.
That's right.
And I think it gives courage to the women and children in those groups that someone is out there. And I want to thank you for all you guys do.
Well, you're very kind. I was just honored to have been there. And, I have met so many of the people that I most admire in life through this story, to be honest with
I
you.
want everyone to know in the communities, Flora's not a bad guy. She's an amazing person with a big heart. And she'll do
That's
anything for
that's
you.
my feeling too. I took amen to that.
Definitely, definitely. I do have one wrap-up question. Just you may not know the answer to this, but we've heard rumors that, Warren obviously is still sending out edicts from his prison cell and kids are going missing because of it. But we've also heard that, maybe Helaman is the next anointed one. Have you heard any rumors or kind of know anything about like the direction of the mainstream FLDS at this point?
Yeah, my parents actually received a phone call from Warren Jeff's mother inviting them back. That's why they moved,
Wow.
because they were repenting from a distance for years. And she's actually helping continue that. And I believe Helaman is part of it as well. I know she actually is the one that made the phone call to my parents that made them move.
So they're up in Idaho now. They're kind of
Yeah.
changing
And,
location. It's
and
interesting.
of Colorado City, I mean, a lot of them have scattered. For the
Yeah.
most part, the FLDS community. This Dylan and I were up there a couple of months ago, and for the most part, it seems like they've sort of abandoned.
Yeah. Yeah, they've gone to hide elsewhere. I think that Colorado City and Hilda, Utah just got too much attention, and so they're trying to find somewhere else to hide.
Yeah, to hide.
Yeah.
That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So and they hide because so guys like Warren and those guys can continue to do what they've always done.
Isolation.
Wow. Well, we'll try to keep tracking down that story as much as we can.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for taking part of your Sunday morning with us.
Yeah,
It
thank
does
you.
feel like when I saw your little notice of the 21st anniversary, I thought that was one of the most remarkable nights of my career, racing up there with Flora and then meeting you two young ladies. And every time I've seen Willie Jessup since then, he threatens to have me arrested for kidnapping because of that night. I said, Willie, go ahead, bring on the cops. But just to hear your story it's remarkable, and it just fills my heart with joy to see you and your daughter
Thank you.
these many years later.
And from side note, I just want to say thank you because I feel like I grew up hearing about such strong and powerful women that you were incredible role models for me. And I've just heard all about you throughout my entire life. And I'm so thankful that I finally got to meet you and your wonderful daughter.
Thank you. It was really nice
So-
to meet you too.
Will you come back and join us some other time?
Absolutely.
All right, now that we're back in touch, we're going to be keeping track of you. Okay. Keeping our eye on you with great expectations.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Signing off. This is Story Hustler. Thanks for joining us.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.